Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Star Wars Rebels video. This is going to be my trailer analysis for the trailer that was released yesterday for Star Wars Rebels, which is the trailer for the second half of Season 2, which is, the episodes are starting again to air January 20th with a new episode about Princess Leia. So we already had that information going in, so I didn't really focus on Leia at all really in this video. But yeah, the way I'm going to cover this is I have picked out a bunch of screenshots from throughout the video. I went through it like basically second by second looking for the most notable things, and I'll show them to you and talk about them. If you want to see the full trailer, the link to that is in the description of the video. But yeah, before I get into the screenshots, just some general thoughts on the trailer. I really liked it. Like the first half of this season has been good, but it's been very kind of, I suppose, inconsistent. Some of the episodes have been very good. Some of them have been, fairly weak considering we're in Season 2 and like stakes are a bit higher. But in general, this whole trailer seems to be hinting that the second half of the season is going to be a lot darker, a lot more interesting, a lot more intense, and that is definitely a good thing. And usually I wouldn't even do a trailer analysis video for Star Wars Rebels, but there's a lot of stuff to talk about in this video, so that I think is very telling of how good this season looks. But yeah, overall really like the trailer, so I'll get into talking about some specifics now with the first screenshot here. As you can see from the timeline on the screenshot, it is the very first shot we see in the entire trailer, and that is of Ahsoka, Ezra, and Kanan looking at this, what seems to be Darkside Sith temple on some sort of a Sith planet. Now, the only real planet that is fully associated with the Sith that we know about is the planet Moraband, which we have seen in the Clone Wars Season 6, The Lost Missions, the Yoda episode. He goes there as part of his training with Qui-Gon, and this is in-universe, in terms of canon legends, well known as the planet Korriban, which is the homeworld of the Sith of old, when they were a full-on army and stuff like that. So it makes sense that this is kind of the planet. I think in some of the other screenshots you see that the kind of surface general hue of the world is quite red, so it potentially is that same place. But again, there's also potential for this to be somewhat of a Mortis type thing as well, with some of the stuff not necessarily being real, but being kind of visions or apparitions or something like that. So there's a lot of kind of stuff like, can you take everything you see here as like actually happening, given that we're dealing with the dark side Sith temple type thing? I'm not fully sure, but either way, this is like the opening shot. It's very telling that like some of the key episodes in the season are going to take place once they go to this planet. And in terms of some of the what they talk about in terms of the dialogue throughout the trailer, is very interesting. That Ahsoka is suggesting to Ezra, it seems like, to kind of investigate kind of the other side of the Force almost. That she obviously uses white lightsabers now, which is kind of seems to be they're hinting at that she's not really a Jedi. She kind of hints at much in previous episodes. So is she somewhat of a grey Jedi that kind of just tries to keep some sort of a balance between light and dark within herself, and so is fine with investigating the dark side of the Force, and is kind of hinting that Ezra do the same for some reason. The reason that comes to mind is potentially that the Jedi teachings, a lot of them, holocrons and stuff like that, have been destroyed with the Empire, and they may have to investigate Sith temples to kind of find ways to train to become more powerful, to defeat the Inquisitors and so on. And for Ahsoka, it might be to investigate who Darth Vader is, given her suspicions about who she thinks it might be. So there's a lot of like important stuff, I think, revolving around why we're in any way addressing the kind of dark side of the Force, investigating Sith artifacts or something like that. But anyway, we move on to the second screenshot. This is definitely one of the ones there's not as much to talk about it, but it's notable that at some point in the season we're going to see our two Inquisitors that we've been introduced to this season talk to Darth Vader and somewhat plan something. There's a scene later on in the trailer where I think the fifth brother, his name is, I think that's his name, says to, I assume it's Darth Vader because I assume it's from the same scene, that the Jedi are getting much more powerful, and Vader says that that will be their downfall. So I assume what they're hinting at here is that the more powerful a Jedi gets, the more he can potentially be tempted by the dark side, which is kind of what happened to Anakin, and so they're kind of hinting at that for Ezra throughout the trailer. So it kind of is just a cool thing there, and it hints that at some point the two Inquisitors are defeated by potentially Kanan and Ezra. But again, we don't know how far into the season this is. Next shot, I'm going through this kind of in order, is we get confirmation that we are going to see Cham Syndulla, Hera's father, at some point in the season, and he and a bunch of other people from Ryloth, Twi'leks, are going to enter the season. So this is probably going to be Hera's kind of big focus on her father coming back into play, her homeworld, her people, and what that relationship is like. We don't get a massive amount on it. You see a couple of little action shots of Cham Syndulla and the other Twi'leks fighting, and Hera's in a few scenes in ship fighting, but you don't really get to see them interact in the trailer just yet. But there's some sort of an issue between them. We get that, and that I think in the solo Hera episode this season, she specifically talked about her past and didn't really mention her father. So there's potentially an issue between them, but he's a character we know from the Clone Wars a little bit, so it'll be interesting to see what he's about. Obviously supporting the rebellion, I would assume. Next one is just interesting from a fight perspective. We're going to potentially get a 3-on-3 duel between the two Inquisitors we've met, plus another one against Kanan, Ezra, and Ahsoka. And if the choreography is done really well and the animation is good, that could be a really amazing fight if they keep it a 3-on-3 fight and don't just split it up into 3 1-on-1 fights. But it's notable there, just the style. Like Kanan has a standard lightsaber, Ezra has his unique blaster lightsaber, and then Ahsoka obviously uses 2 lightsabers, versus the Inquisitors, who all have their kind of really fancy lightsaber that can spin. It's double bladed. It could be a single lightsaber. So there could be some potential for some really good fights here. And again, it seems to be all set around this kind of Sith temple. I'm just going to call it for the sake of this video. So there's that. Next up, we get this other scene, which is an interesting one because in general, a lot of this seems like it's Sith stuff, but then they just randomly cut to like Jedi stuff. And this is the first time in the whole trailer that we really see like the Sith kind of in potentially the same temple encountered by Jedi Sentinels, or what we kind of find out from the Clone Wars are the Jedi Temple Guards. Now, if you look on StarWars.com for these guys in the databanks, it's revealed that these guys report to Sindralig, who is the lightsaber master at the temple. So, I'll talk about these again in a few minutes in one of the other screenshots, but it's just notable that at some point the two Inquisitors are going to head in and be encountered by a bunch of these guys, all with their kind of yellow lightsabers. So, are these just kind of light side apparitions in this temple or what? I don't really know. It's kind of a confusing thing. But if we got like a big fight like that would be really cool. We get more Ezra and Yoda stuff here, and I think this is the first time we've ever seen Yoda in Rebels. I think it is. Yoda's design in Rebels is a little weird. The face especially I don't think works all that well. But I don't think we're going to see him for that long, so I don't think it'll be too bad. But either way, what we get here is Ezra kind of asking Yoda, is it right to fight to protect everyone that I care about? And I think what Yoda says, it's a bit hard to make out over some of the sound effects, but he says something along the lines of, like, for a Jedi, it's about how you choose to win. So I think what they're potentially hinting at here is if he's going to be involved in a lot of lightsaber fights this season, when he's fighting, is he just fighting to protect himself and the people around him, or is he fighting to actively try to kill his opponents, which isn't really the Jedi way. So him learning that is going to be an important thing, so definitely interesting. Just to see when exactly his communication with Yoda happens. Yoda clearly on Dagobah there, you can see from the kind of branch, so it's interesting that he's communicating with other Jedi. But the next screenshot here is of this holocron of Anakin Skywalker that I assume Ahsoka has, or they found somewhere. I would assume it's Ahsoka, and she's talking about her master for the first time to Ezra and Kanan. Now, it's not in this screenshot, but in like a second or two earlier on in the trailer, you can see that it's projecting out of a holocron. But yeah, it appears to be Anakin doing some lightsaber drills, potentially blaster deflection. Facially, I think he looks okay. It's obviously Rebels is a different style than the Clone Wars, and potentially, like, we don't really know what age Anakin this is. But I think it's the clothing that's probably the most odd thing about Anakin here. In that, like, if he's recording a holocron for Ahsoka potentially to help her train, it kind of makes sense that he'd be in more training clothes rather than his usual kind of Jedi robes. But either way, she's showing this to Ezra and explaining about her master to him, and he's very amazed by Anakin and how good he was. And she kind of says, you know, it would be amazing to see him in person. And just prior to this, them going into this scene, they show like Vader, so they're very much, you know, making it clear that that's the case. I don't think they're really trying to keep it a spoiler for people who perhaps haven't seen the original trilogy that Vader is Anakin. But they're definitely making a big deal about it because Ahsoka doesn't know, and a lot of the characters don't know. But next up, here's the other scene. We see the return of these Jedi Temple Guards, the Jedi Sentinels, and we'll see some more shots much later on in the screenshots. But yeah, it appears to be he walks into this dojo that apparently maybe is part of the Jedi Temple, maybe it's a vision. Again, we're not really sure. Like, if they go into a Sith temple and suddenly Kanan's going to be getting Jedi training, like, what's actually happening here? But either way, it's a cool setting here. You know, it's very martial arts style with the kind of swords up on the walls, and we'll see later on. There's also lightsabers up on the walls. To me, it seems like Kanan is going to be getting some lightsaber training, which makes sense to me because he's good, but not quite good enough to take on some of the Inquisitors, especially if there's multiple ones. His training wasn't complete. It makes complete sense that he would get some sort of lightsaber training to kind of boost his power level up so he can actually take on more opponents. Next up, though, more dark side stuff, and we have here what appears to be right in the middle of this Sith temple is some sort of a Sith power source, dark side power source, or Sith holocron that Ezra finds or is drawn to or something like that. But again, not really sure where they're leading to with this, other than the fact that potentially Ezra is tempted by the dark side. And the most notable thing about him being tempted, moving into the next screenshot, is this guy. Now, he calls himself, he says to Ezra, "Call me old master," and he appears to want to train Ezra in some way and probably teach him some of the dark side. And it's initially, when I first saw the trailer, I was just like, Darth Bane? Are they doing some sort of Darth Bane spirit type thing? But no, this is Darth Maul. It's just from the screenshot you could see it's absolutely Darth Maul. The color of the eyes, you can see, even though the colors are a bit kind of washed out here because of the shadow, you can clearly see patterns on his face that are absolutely Darth Maul. And that is very much the case because in the Clone Wars, we know he survived the duel with Obi-Wan in Episode 1, came back to life, you know, helped train Savage and stuff like that. They did their whole thing in the underworld, and then Sidious killed Savage and took Maul back. And then some of the comics, I think, established that Maul, after working for Sidious for a while, doing some other stuff, escaped. Mother Talzin was killed, but he is out there alive right now. We don't know where exactly he dies. So if they cover the fate of Darth Maul going forward in the second half of Rebels, that's going to be absolutely amazing, because other Clone Wars characters like Asajj Ventress, they obviously dealt with her final fate in the book Dark Disciple, which was meant to be Clone Wars episodes before it was cancelled. So dealing with the likes of like Maul. At some point I would hope they would explain Barriss Offee and stuff like that, where what happens to them. It's really interesting. This is just a really random one, but just like they're even giving Chopper something to do. That at some point he's going to fight this evil R2, R3, R4, R5 unit. I don't really know how you determine which is which beyond the characters saying their names, but just the idea of Chopper being in a droid on droid fight seems pretty cool. But that's just a small little thing there. This screenshot and the next one both deal with Zeb. We see that his feud with Agent Kallus is going to continue, and obviously that was a thing established much earlier on in the season, that they fought and they've kind of been at each other's throats the whole time. I think there's some sort of a history with Kallus and Zeb's people, his species, but I'm not fully sure. But the next one is notable because we see this weapon that Zeb uses here a couple of times in the trailer, but it's not really notable what exactly it's doing. But the most notable thing about this screenshot is that you can clearly see that the two characters on the right side of the frame are also of Zeb's species. One is obviously an older woman and the other an older man. So we initially thought that he was the last of his species, but it seems like some others survived and he's found something ancient to his people. So nice to know that we will cover some of more of Zeb's past and stuff like that, definitely. So that's cool. Next up, we see more of Ahsoka and her dealing with the kind of looking, I suppose, the mystery of Darth Vader. Is he or is he not Anakin and stuff like that. But yeah, we see she's meditating. It looks like in the dark side temple, trying to figure this out. And we hear the voice of Anakin, but the image of Vader kind of in her mind saying, you know, like, why did you leave Ahsoka? And there's definitely, I think, the hint that they're going for something along the lines of Ahsoka somewhat feels guilty if it does turn out that Anakin is Darth Vader, that her leaving left him so emotionally hurt that he turned to the dark side. She would know him very well, and that he has that in him, and so it could be something that she sort of blames herself for, that her leaving maybe not was completely responsible for that, but at some point it was a factor in what happened. Because there's the hints throughout the Clone Wars that she kind of is aware of him and Padme being a couple and stuff like that, so she may be aware of something happening to her. But again, we're not fully sure. But just the fact that they're addressing this and the emotional impact that her leaving had on Anakin, very important stuff. Next screenshot, we have Darth Vader come down atop his TIE fighter, and then he appears to be fighting Ezra. And again, it's stuff like this that makes you wonder, like, is this real or is it a vision? Is this inside the temple, outside the temple, or what? With the Sith, it's because there's a level of kind of sorcery magic to them, especially ancient Sith. It's always hard to tell with that sort of thing. But it seems like there is a confrontation here, real confrontation that happens with Vader. But anyway, next up we see more of the Jedi Temple guards, the Sentinels, further showing us their lightsabers here. They're both they're double-sided. They can fold up, kind of like General Krell's lightsabers, and they're obviously, as you can see there, yellow. So that's notable, and there's 3 of them now. And then the immediate shot following this is this one, with Kanan with his own lightsaber plus a separate lightsaber that's red, so a Sith lightsaber. Though it's I don't really know, just based on the hilt design, if it's anyone we're meant to know, or if it's just that he's picked up a second lightsaber off the rack behind him. But none of the other lightsaber designs instantly stand out as being like, that's this Jedi's lightsaber and stuff like that. I think there's elements of them that look like others, but none of them I don't think are exact. But yeah, just the fact that he has his own plus a red lightsaber is potentially dealing with some sort of a light side, dark side thing with Kanan. Maybe it will deal with some of the past of his master Depa Billaba, who potentially had some sort of a thing with the dark side, but we're not fully sure canonically right now if that's the case. Either way, it seems like it's some sort of a lightsaber training that he's going to potentially train in dual wielding Jar Kai. But again, like it's really hard to tell if it's just some sort of a Sith vision that's making it look like a training session, but they're actually trying to kill him, and he just picks up a second one for a better defense, or is it actually going to be proper lightsaber training? The reason I say lightsaber training is because of the next shot where we see Ezra with this green crossguard lightsaber, which just, it doesn't appear like they're in the same room. He just finds it somewhere, but I assume it's some sort of an ancient lightsaber, because we know Kylo Ren's is based off an ancient design, though his is more crossguard for power's sake, and that the crossguards are more like vents, whereas this one just actually actively seems like it was designed to have three things, which to me doesn't seem like a practical type of lightsaber. But either way, seeing different types of lightsabers, some sort of an explanation for Kylo Ren's design will be cool. Second last screenshot I have here is a picture of some other different Mandalorian helmets, and this is probably where Sabine's focus in the second half of the season will come into play, that at some point we'll meet other Mandalorians and find out what exactly is the deal with Mandalorians. Why does Sabine have the helmet? What's that connection there? Where is she actually from? That sort of thing. And just the other thing that they made was the Sabine screams out like Rex, no, so potentially something happens to Rex. She and Rex team up for a mission. We're not fully sure. Last one is basically the last full shot of the trailer as well, and that is Ahsoka dueling Darth Vader. And again, you know, it's in the temple. Is it real? Is it not? Is it just some sort of a vision thing brought out by being in a place of dark side power? Based on what they've been saying, it seems like this is actually the duel. So this is it potentially. So really cool that we're going to get to see that fight this season. Will it be their final fight? We're not sure. But either way, we know Ahsoka at least isn't mentioned in any of the movies. You know, does she survive? Does she not? Not really sure, but I think for a lot of people, they kind of believe that just for everything to make sense, that she kind of has to be killed off. That this is another thing that furthers Darth Vader's ascent to the dark side, that he kills his apprentice, and that ultimately in the end it's only his son who's the only one who can bring him back. So I don't know, but it's going to be cool to see this duel, see how powerful Ahsoka is going up against Darth Vader, and what they talk about here. Especially the dialogue is going to be very important in this fight. But yeah, really good trailer overall, just hinting at a lot of different things. As I said there, basically every character has something of note. Hera and her father, Sabine and the Mandalorians, potentially Sabine and Rex teaming up, Zeb and his people, Zeb and Callus seems to be, they're going to address that again. Kanan and potentially some lightsaber training, going through similar stuff to Ezra. Ezra and the dark side, Ezra talking to Yoda, Ezra very much dealing with a lot of stuff with regards to balance of the Force, Ezra meeting Darth Maul, and being told by Ahsoka about Anakin. So a lot of interesting things here. Like if he's told about Anakin, and eventually like she survives the duel and reveals that Anakin is Vader, it could very much prompt Ezra to kind of maybe turn back from some sort of a dark path he's on. But yeah, there's that. Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff happening here. Lightsaber training, holocrons, a lot of Inquisitor stuff. Seems to be a lot of lightsaber fights. Even Chopper seems to have a little fight with some droid, though I don't know how important that will be. But yeah, like I really like this trailer. In the comments, definitely let me know what your thoughts were on the trailer. Some of the stuff I pointed out throughout the video. Do you think the planet is Korriban? Do you think it's a Sith temple? That sort of thing. That's probably the most plot-heavy thing we get from the trailer. But yeah, other than that, thanks for watching the video, and bye.